right, hello, welcome to Quest for Common Sense. And I'm Ashley Tullis, and professionally, I'm a realtor with Realty One Group, Mountain Desert. But today, I'm just another person in Flagstaff, and we are talking common sense. So, we've got my husband here, Cliff Tullis. Hey, Cliff, thanks for being on the
Hi,
show.
Ash. Thank you very, very much for having me on again. Always good conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I know that you gave us lots of good insights on the martial arts last episode. Today we are talking about something else. So, what is your common sense that you'd like to share with everyone today?
Well, I have a lot of downtime in my life, so I spend a lot of time on the internet. And it would appear on the internet today that a lot of people are really, really upset with artificial intelligence.
Okay.
A lot of people are upset with AI, and it's like this new thing. And my common sense is that I actually don't think it's as bad as people are like, making it out to be. I think it's a little bit of like an alarmism kind of thing with artificial intelligence. And so, like, the big concern right now is everybody, especially folks in the creative fields, are saying like, "Oh, AI is going to take our job. We're going to be out of a job. It's going to take our opportunities." And I think that it's common sense to disagree with that point of view. I actually think that AI is going to give humans more opportunities. And I think that it's common sense if you like are willing to just kind of sit down and have the hard conversation about it.
Okay. So, especially you're saying for like creative people, it's kind of common sense that AI is not going to take a creative person's job, especially like maybe an artist or something like that. They could, like an AI could maybe try and take their job, but it wouldn't really do it very successfully. One thing that I've seen a lot is those, I think they're really awful and terrible and too wordy, but those posters, those AI posters that everyone's making to promote their events, and I look at this poster and I don't even want to read it. I don't want to look at the pictures. I just ignore it completely because there's too much words anyways. The wording is not in a correct like blocking that we're used to seeing. So it's like um, it might try and take their jobs, but how successful will it really be, at
Right,
it?
exactly. And you hit the nail on the head, the AI posters or the AI advertisements. There's a conversation to be had there. Um, we used to have if you wanted to put out an advertisement, say you'd hire an artist. An artist would then get you a design, and then the design was what you would pay the artist for, and then you would go out and you'd put out your design, right? And humans really resonated with that. And I think that the reason that like people are not resonating with the AI posters, say, is because there is no human thought or ingenuity or anything that kind of goes into it. The code doesn't really know what humans like, but other humans do know what other humans like. And so that's why I think it's like you know, kind of a silly fear, if I can, like, I'm not trying to be judgmental or whatever, because a lot of these conversations are totally worth having. I just think that it is kind of a silly fear for an artist to kind of diminish their worth as a human creator, when AI is really just a tool for someone that's going to use it to do things a little more cheaply and effectively. Like now the person doesn't have to hire an artist to come up with a layout for a quick ad that they want on the internet. They can just whip it up in 30 seconds using AI. That's useful. That's useful. And there's another side of the conversation as well that says like, is that going to take opportunities away from artists? Probably so. In some arenas, it is going to take opportunities away from artists. It's just going to kind of like change the way the opportunities look, I think. Like for example, if we're talking about an artist that's making um, advertisements, maybe now instead of using their artistic talent to make advertisements, they'll use their artistic talent to make something that speaks to them, and then they could end up being way more successful than they would if they were just designing posters.
Yeah, it's kind of like maybe even for an artist, it will give them an opportunity to stop jumping through so many hoops and they can actually do the art that they want to do because as any freelance person, you would have to pick up these jobs that you necessarily don't want to do. I don't really want to make this ad. I'd rather paint this beautiful painting of a mountain, so it's like now they'll have more time to focus on those certain things and put out better art too.
Sure. And like,
So that'll be interesting. Another thing too is that people can use AI to help themselves be a better artist. So maybe an artist now might think that that's cheating or it's taking a shortcut. But like, I am not an artist too much. I like to do the paint by numbers, but I have to go and buy a paint by number. Maybe I could potentially take a picture that I wanted to paint, have the AI do the paint by number for me, because I don't know if I could do that myself right now yet. Maybe I could in the future. And then I could paint on top of it, and then it's like it's still my painting, but the AI made the paint by number for me, and then, that's just a way that I could make more art.
100%. And it's like, who loses in that situation? Do you lose? No. You get to make your art. You get to do what you want to do. Does the AI lose? No. Do other artists lose? No. So it's like,
Well, I guess the Hobby Lobby loses my $10 of business. So Hobby Lobby loses, or whoever, it's whoever is selling that paint by number. I guess eventually would lose. But again, who's jumping through these hoops? Who wants to be making these paint by numbers? Is it big meta corporation making paint by numbers, or is it a real person making a paint by number?
exactly.
So.
Exactly. And like, it could also be used as a tool in other regards, like lending to what you say, right? If we let's say that you wanted to do a paint by number. What you're doing is you are um what's the word that I'm looking for? You're really well, let's phrase it this way. You are highlighting your strengths as an artist and passing what is like not really in your arena, like the logistical creation of the paint by number, right? That's not in the artist's arena. That's something logistical. That's something that like is grunt work, so to say, right? So you're empowering yourself and your art by not handling the grunt work. You're actually doing your things faster and more efficiently. Now, instead of saying, oh, well, I have to go to Hobby Lobby and I have to do this and this and that. No, you want to create something right now. You want to paint something right now. So, as an artist, you have that ability now to just do it. Something that's really, really interesting is like musicians. Musicians have a set skill, right? And musicians need a lot of help from other artists in order to get their like music heard and their name out there, right? Like if you're a musician and you play guitar and you sing, that's your skill. But to record your music is a whole other skill. And then to do video for your music is a whole other skill. Advertising your music, a whole other skill. So if your skill is just guitar and singing, then you can have AI do all of these other things that you might not necessarily be interested in. And it will only empower you as an artist. So, my common sense is that if artists are truly scared of this AI technology, well, then perhaps they should like look in and ask what, why do they feel that their art is invaluable? Why do they feel like their art could be replaced by AI? Why? Why do you feel that way? I don't know. It's confusing to me because when I look at AI art or AI generation anything and a human, like if AI generates a sentence and a human writes a sentence, you're going to see a very, very big difference. So I just don't understand
Yeah.
what the fear is. I don't understand why so many artists are scared.
Yeah, and I suppose that it's the way that things are now, like the way that the AI is now, and the way that it's going to be in 5, 10, 20, 50 years is going to be pretty
Totally.
different.
Yeah.
So, that's just something to think
Yeah,
about
I would
too.
say it would take
So,
like a whole bunch of different forms, and I would hope that, I don't know, when I first started tangling with AI and stuff, I was thinking to myself, holy cow, this is actually a huge, huge invention. Like, I'm sure it's probably been around in different forms like for a long time, but the commercialized version that it is now, where it's like a chatbot, you can essentially, we've reached a place where me, a person who made D's in mathematics in high school, I can now have a full blown conversation with a coded computer. I can have a conversation with a coded computer. I can code things. I don't know how to code things. Like, this is going to open up so many avenues for so many ideas that have been lost. You talked about at the beginning about hoops to jump through. And it's like, man, how many hoops were there for artists to jump through? How many hoops still exist to this day? And how many hoops will like be completely bypassed because of this new technology? It really is like a man discovering fire kind of moment. That's where I stand on it.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people probably have different views and opinions, so it's not, I know we're talking about kind of just artists and artists using AI, but there are lots of implications that AI could have. I mean, one reason that a lot of people are scared is the movie
Yeah.
Terminator. But, who knows? I know you always kind of laugh when I bring that up, but it is a legitimate thing. But it's also kind of like the movie Jaws, where, you know, just the movie itself made people afraid of
Hmm.
sharks.
Hmm.
Even though sharks, sure, yes, sharks are killing people out there, but they're not really like killing so many people that we need to be so afraid of
Yeah, that's a
sharks.
good
So
analogy.
it's the same thing. It's like there is a fear for what this could turn into. It has to be regulated, there has to be rules and laws, and we have to understand what we're doing, not just being like, wow, look at this red shiny AI button, let me press this. So that's where some people's fear comes through.
100
It's a huge change.
100%. And I agree with that. Not saying that we have to completely not even have that conversation, because those conversations are necessary, especially with the new technology. When the internet first came out, none of us had any idea what the risks were going to be long term with the internet. If we knew then what we know now, then we probably would have regulated the internet a little hard, like a little harder to just to like watch out for our youth and to watch out for like our health and crime and all these things. So these conversations are worth having, and we need to have these conversations if the technology is going to be helpful, because it's like a baseball bat. If you put it in the hand of like an athlete, it's going to do awesome things. If you put it in a baseball bat in the hand of a criminal, it's going to do terrible, terrible things. And so we got to like, every technology is a double-edged blade. So, and also not to say that the fear isn't really warranted too, because there probably are some jobs that will be replaced by automation, but that's been a thing for as long as humans have been inventing things, like human beings have always been replaced.
Yep, like the
Right.
horses. The horses have been replaced by
Sure.
cars. But look, horses are still around. People can still enjoy horses. People have horse
That's right.
property. Horses are still out there. You can go horseback riding. You just go anytime. You call up a business. So it will be different in ways that we can't even fathom right
Totally.
now.
Totally.
Just like the internet in the 1980s, people couldn't understand what 2026 was going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not going to be able to understand what 40 years in the future looks like right now. But humans are resilient. So we're going to be able to figure it out one way or
We're
another.
resilient, yes. We're also very resistant. We're really resistant to change and different things sort of coming and shaking things up. You know what I mean? I would encourage everybody, if anyone's listening to this right now, I would say that you need to take part in the conversation, because there's two sides of this conversation that I see right now. One side is people saying, no, AI sucks, I hate it, walk away. The other side says that AI is very helpful. What we need to do is we need to have this conversation. And so, like, that's why I think it's so fascinating, is because it is going to look different in like 4 years. It's going to look different in 2 years. And I think it's really interesting and fascinating to have these conversations right now, because it is an emerging technology and we all are all kind of like forming our opinion on it. And so I would encourage everybody that like might be discouraged about AI, or that might think like, oh, it's a bad thing, to take part of the conversation, express like your feelings, because it is bad in some way. It totally can be. Terminator 2, Skynet, come on. Like the whole reason that Elon Musk dipped his toes into AI and developed Grok was because he was afraid of Skynet actually happening. He said, "No, I'm terrified of AI. It's going to take over the entire world unless we do something about it." And so I feel like that's a good mentality to have moving forward. If you're an artist or if you're just a person that is afraid that their job's going to be taken, you should probably just say like, well, it's scary, so maybe I should pay attention and express my thoughts on it and, like take part in this big conversation that's happening right now.
Yeah, because when people do that collectively, it makes a big difference. Like in the 60s or 70s, when there was the massive hole in the ozone
Hmm.
layer, and then everyone came together and really repaired it. I know I was looking at some articles a while ago, and they said it's doing fine, it's doing good. So, when people do come together, then good things can happen. But we all have to have the discussion and have the democracy and have, the ability
That's
to
right.
do
And
that.
like we have to have the freedom to choose as well. Another important part of this conversation with AI is like privacy, right? It's like if you do not have your privacy, then we have lost the AI fight. We've lost it. So I would hope that we would hold on to our privacy and all of these things. And yeah, it's a very, very important conversation to be a part of right now. It's very, very important.
I think so. I think so. Well, you have made some art using AI. Do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about where they could find that, or what about your art that you've been
Sure.
doing?
Um, I believe that AI is like a useful tool, right? And I've been making music and I've been making movies and things for a very, very long time. The one thing I really struggle with is drawing. I never sat down and I never really learned how to draw. I was more interested in like taking pictures or like, writing things or whatever. That was easier to me than drawing a whole picture in my brain. The patience, just it takes so much patience to be a good like, illustrator. Um, so anyway, I always thought technology was like a really useful tool, and I really enjoy working with new technologies and experimenting with things like that. And so I made an album. It's a music album. It's called "Is It Music?" And the whole idea of the album was to collaborate with AI, and I did that in a few interesting ways. I had AI. Um, I had an AI chatbot that was my producer, and I had this AI chatbot pretend to be Kanye. And so Kanye West helped me produce my album, although he was, as an AI chatbot, but it was actually very useful and very helpful. And, like concerning the order of the music and all these other things. I wrote all the lyrics and I asked AI to generate all of the instrumentals. And so I used two different AI models. I used Suno and Murica, which were two music generation models. Both of them had strengths and weaknesses. And the whole process was just an experiment to see how long would this take? Is it cool? Does it work? This and that. I've had a lot of positive response and I've had a lot of negative response. And I think both of those, um, all of that feedback is really useful, really helpful. So
Yeah.
you can listen to it on Spotify. It's under Sensei Cliff. It's called Is It Music? I'm asking the question, is this music? What do you think about that? Um, but yeah, ultimately, I think that AI is just going to be able to help someone like me do the things that I want to do for my family. I like to, I mean, of course, you and I, we talked about living off grid and things like that. In my opinion, I think AI is going to make that kind of life more accessible for people, not less. I don't think that we're moving into dystopia. I think we're moving into utopia. And I know that sounds crazy because we've been conditioned our whole lives to believe that utopia is impossible. But I just think differently, I suppose.
Well, that part right there is going to get a lot of controversy because utopia is dystopia, right?
It would just
You can't have it. You can't have a utopia. It doesn't
that is
exist.
what
So
I heard in
that
school. Yes,
alone, yeah. So that alone will just have its own
I'll
controversy.
bet.
Because if you think about it, like nothing can have a utopia. I mean, it can't all be good because that wouldn't exist. Because bad things would
What if
happen
I?
even if it was all good.
Correct.
If you were only able to eat cake every single day, you love cake. Cake is my utopia. I'm gonna eat cake every single day. Oh my gosh! Now you have diabetes. You weigh 400 pounds. Blah 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 blah.
Yes.
So That's just how
It
I
is
look at it.
a controversial statement. Yes, if I could rephrase it to say exactly what I mean, then this is what I'll say. Everything is yin yang, right? Everything is dark and light. You cannot like improve without also, devolving. You can't. And you're right. You're totally right. You eat all the cake, that's fantastic, but then you got the diabetes, right? Cause and effect. Um, what I will say is that I believe we are moving in a direction that resembles more of a utopian state than a dystopian state. So it won't be a perfect utopia. That's impossible. You're totally right. However, I do think that we're moving into a world that looks much more positive, optimistic. I think that we're going to have a lot more prosperity. And I think it's because of this technology. And I don't think that that is a ridiculous thing to say. And that might not be impossible either. Like, of course, it's going to come with downsides. All change does. And, moving forward, progress always brings about uncomfortable change for people to, like, kind of deal with and things. But ultimately, I believe it's going to benefit us more than it will hurt us. So that's a better thing to say, I think.
That's a better, yeah,
Yes.
idea there. So, well, good. With that, I think we'll wrap it up. We're kind of at our time here. Make sure that you tell us one more time about how we could find you
Oh
online,
man, if
Cliff.
you go to the CodePunk network, that's codepunk.net. You'll have all my games, all of the movies, all the music, all the cool stuff. So yeah, codepunk.net. That's where you can find all the media stuff for now.
Sweet. Okay, there we go. All right. Well, thank you, Sensei Cliff, for being with us, and we'll
Thanks
catch you
so
next
much for
time.
having me on. Peace. Can't wait to watch.